So breathing actually helps to restabilize that very important vagus nerve that either sends us into fight-flight response through the ventral system or through into the freeze response through the dorsal nerve. As a psychotherapist with over 20 years experience, I have been privileged to help support thousands of individuals in a quest to help them to feel better. Over the years, I've seen many clients take a journey of self-discovery and with the privilege watch their journeys evolve from struggle to strength. Raw, Reels and Wisdom hopes to shake up the mental health space as we know it and offer an alternative perspective, because if we don't change how we're looking at things, then nothing is going to change. Waiting lists are just getting longer, people are getting sicker, suicide is rising, young kids are suffering, and many are disassociating or disconnecting themselves in order to survive life. I'm so excited to welcome you all to our very first episode of Raw. And I'm super excited and delighted to welcome my very first guest, Aimee, who has escaped a challenging struggle and is continuing her journey to find her strength. This is her story. Hi, Aimee.
Hi, Jane. Thanks for having me today.
It's my pleasure. It's lovely to have this chat.
It is.
Tell me a little bit about your struggling journey.
So, I guess back in 2012, I emigrated over to Australia. I was on my holiday working visa and, as most Brits do, and then decided to settle over there. I met and married a local and we had 2 little boys. And then as time progressed, things became increasingly challenging for a variety of reasons, and the personal challenges and struggles that I was facing during that time became quite impossible to manage, particularly having 2 young children. So they were 10 months and 2 when I took the decision to bring them back to the UK for some respite to be closer to my family. So that was back in at the end of 2019. Then it was a bit of a very unsettling period. I was back living in the UK with 2 babies and 2 suitcases of clothes to our name. We didn't even have, winter coats when we landed at frosty Heathrow and Mum came to pick us up. And so I was kind of faced with a completely new situation of being a single mum in a country that I'd not lived in for such a long time, with no... I had my own business in Australia, but coming back to England, my whole life just turned upside down, basically. And we decided to stay in the UK, and I wasn't eligible for any sort of support because I've been living out of the UK for such a long time. I was going to eventually, we did get some support from the government, and I was going to look at flats and houses, and there was the kind of no DSS application, and it just blew my mind going from a point of having a successful business and to being completely the other end of the spectrum and not even being able to find somewhere to live for me and my children.
So you were virtually homeless.
Yeah, exactly. And looking back at that point in time, I was still Alfie, my little boy wasn't walking, I was still breastfeeding, and I don't really know how I got through those early months or years, to be honest. And then fast forward a month of us moving into a tiny 2-bed flat, and the world closed down, COVID hit. And at that point in time, I wasn't really sure what the kind of future held, where we should be in the world. And the the airports closed. So that kind of took the decision out of my hands for that period of time for us to go back to Australia. Then over the course of the next couple of years, we were in and out of lockdowns, raising two little boys with no outdoor space. At the beginning, we weren't even allowed to to leave the house. We had no garden. You weren't allowed to take children to the supermarket. But what else are you supposed to do if you've not got, it was a really, really challenging time, as it was for a lot of people. I slowly but surely kind of, I had an incredible goal in my mind of where I visualized our life being, and we're not there yet, but I knew that I had the power within me to change our situation. Don't get me wrong, it was incredibly hard trying to have that strength, particularly through the sleepless nights, and both the kids having COVID really early on, and I also had it, and so trying to care for them and being ill. And so anyway, then we moved into a house, and the boys started school and nursery and became settled, and then it came the time when the airports opened, and facing the decision, do we move back and put the boys in a potential situation that they could be exposed to again, or do we kind of make the decision to stay here? All of my life and all of my belongings were there. All of the friends and families, and I'd had to start from scratch when I arrived in Australia to build my business contacts. So I'd built the business and raised my first startup from the ground over there, and I just in the blink of an eye lost everything. So
you had to like go through a whole array of emotions in all of that. The feelings of lost, maybe feeling a little bit abandoned. What other feelings do you think you were holding on to in that moment?
Grief, for sure. Grief, shame, guilt. I had an incredible amount of guilt, and, I was incredibly confused as to where we should be and what was, everything that I've done, I've been guided by my why, which is the boys, and putting them, their needs ahead of mine, is something that I've always done, and that's been my guiding light. But it's not ever been easy. But yeah, there's definitely been a significant feelings of abandonment, and guilt and shame. Yeah.
And what have you done for yourself to help you on this recovery journey? So what have you been doing? How have you had the motivation to get yourself through that trauma?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of joke with friends saying that I was either going to become addicted to the gym or red wine to get through. So I realised and kind of identified the things that made me feel good really early on, and prioritised that, which was working out. So from really early on in arriving back in the UK, I made it my mission to organise our life so that I could work out every day.
What motivated you to do that?
Because I identified that exercise was the kind of key thing for me to feel good. And it's kind of like, fitting your own oxygen mask first, putting your I guess at that point, so 5 years ago, I think some people thought I was, maybe quite selfish in prioritising my own fitness. But for me, it was the way that I kind of got through, was able to get through, you know, not just mentally, but also physically. You know, living in a top floor flat with the boys, you know, the little one couldn't walk. So it was carrying him up and down stairs and, you know, getting them in and out of cars. And, you know, when they fall asleep, and they're really big now, but carrying them up to bed, you know, there's obviously I'm on my own, so being able to do that, my fitness, my newfound fitness enabled me to do that.
Okay. And what other techniques or things have you learnt along your journey that have really supported you in building that strength from the inside out rather than from the outside in?
So taking control of my nutrition has helped massively. And now if I, you know, make some kind of choices that aren't necessarily the best in the long run, so you know, if I'll have a couple of glasses of wine, then, you know, the next day I just don't feel great, or if, you know, I'll have some kind of treat meals or just a day where my nutrition isn't balanced, I can really feel it.
It's amazing that you can tell that from your body, and that you're really listening to what your body has to say. And for lots of people, they haven't connected themselves because they are disconnected. So they have no clue how they feel. They're blocked, or they have no awareness of themselves. I think it's incredible that you can check in on yourself and know that doing X, Y, or Z really helps support that.
Yeah, absolutely. And something else that I realised quite, you know, soon after arriving here, was to carve out a little bit of time in the morning before the boys woke up, to either do some exercise or do some kind of meditation and affirmations and goal setting. And that half an hour in the morning is incredible. And if I don't do that, then the focus of my day tends to tail off. But the days where I do my kind of half an hour and have that, you know, that half an hour session to myself, it makes
time.
Me time, exactly.
Me time.
Yeah.
And me time is so important.
Yeah. Especially when, you know, if I don't do that, then quite often there is no me time apart from, you know, when going to the gym. You know, there's no sort of time because the boys often sleep in with me. And, you know, if I'm downstairs and want to watch a movie at night, they'll just be downstairs. So I literally go to bed at the same time as them. So then I can get up early. So there isn't really any sort of me time unless I kind of wake up early. So I prioritise that.
Okay, amazing. You mentioned earlier on about breathing.
Yes.
What is it about breathing, do you think, that helps support you?
I've done yoga off and on for almost 20 years. Gosh, that's a bit really old.
You don't look old enough to have done that for 20 years.
Yeah. And the breathing exercises, I went through a period of time when I was living and working in London, and my job at that time was as an event producer, and it was quite stressful, you know, balancing quite a lot of projects at the same time and spinning lots of plates. And so I found breathing techniques then to help me to fall asleep at night. But the breathing techniques in yoga are incredible. Do
you know why?
Tell me.
So our breath is actually attached to one of the cranial nerves that runs between the top of the head in the amygdala space, which is the fight, flight, freeze response, and comes right the way down into the central nervous system.
Oh, wow.
Which is located in your stomach. And that's how we know when like gut reactions or gut response. So when we send breath in very specific formats, like in yoga, what we're doing is actually restabilizing that nerve that has gone awry because of loss or trauma or change or uncertainty. Or so breathing actually helps to restabilize that very important vagus nerve that either sends us into fight-flight response through the ventral system or through into the freeze response through the dorsal nerve.
Oh, wow.
So that's why breathing really helps support what we do going forwards and how we can calm those voices, that noise, as I call it, in our heads.
Okay, gosh, so interesting. I had no idea. I just knew that it was something that helped me, but I didn't realise.
You didn't know why.
Yeah.
So I know you've also been looking a little bit at some of the alternative type therapies that are out there. So I know you're into like meditation and breathing and exercises like that. But I also know that you've been looking at something called tapping or emotional freedom technique.
Yeah, it's something that I've kind of come across, being exposed to quite recently, and the release that you feel straight away is actually incredible, you know, and the calming effect that it has, and the fact that you can kind of do it anywhere.
Absolutely, it doesn't cost any money.
Yeah, exactly.
It's free to do.
There's
it doesn't
no side
hurt.
effects.
No side effects. But actually, also, and I think I'm not sure about the 100% about the statistics, but it reduces cortisol in your system, and cortisol is the stress hormone that we all have within us.
Right, I didn't realise
and
that
so
it reduces
tapping on the acupressure points actually releases the pressure and the stress from all the information centres. And I'll talk a little bit about that along the sort of through these podcasts. But chakra balancing, chakra healing, crystals, Reiki, reflexology, tapping are all types of different alternative holistic therapies that can be used to heal the nervous system.
Okay, I have tried reflexology and tapping, but I'm super keen to explore and continue my healing journey, exploring all of these treatments.
Okay, and when you did the tapping, you experienced using colour a little bit.
Yes.
How did that make you feel?
So this was something that we did a couple of days ago, and it was a very profound experience, and released some feelings that have held me back in life on a number of different levels for a really long time, and the kind of change in perspective and outlook and mindset just in the past few days has been incredible. I feel like a weight's been lifted, to be honest.
Do you feel a little bit lighter in your whole body?
Yes, exactly.
And that's because emotions weigh heavy. If you can imagine that emotions are a little bit like bricks, if you were carrying a sack full of bricks on your shoulders or in a bag, you would notice how heavy that was.
Yeah.
That's how emotional overload feels heavy. So when we can release it through various different tapping processes or colour therapy, or a process called mindfulness-based inner repatterning, which we'll talk about a little bit in one or two of the next episodes, that then helps to release the bricks one by one, changing the perspective to release all the pressure that people hold on to.
Right.
But many people don't know about it.
No. And I work in the health and wellness space, and I'm just kind of being finding out about a lot of these different modalities through you. So yeah, it's very enlightening, and it's so important that more people are able to tap in and use these.
No pun intended.
See what you did there.
Thank you so much for sharing your really, really challenging journey. It's amazing that you can be so brave to do that in real time. And I'm truly grateful to have come across your path.
My pleasure.
Raw has so many different connotations in its entirety, but initially the name was born out of a dream buried deep within my subconscious. I had been wondering how I could impart 20 years of experience, wisdom and knowledge that I've gained in my career as a psychotherapist into a catalogue of support and help for the many who seek answers to some of the challenges they face on life's journey. No one is immune. Social media was the obvious choice, but the whole social media platform is daunting. Instagram versus reality plays havoc with the value of integrity that is so very important. How do we actually know what's true or false? It's actually all about our raw core beliefs. This challenge and growing need for me to do something so very vulnerable is raw. Raw is also inflammation, internal wounds or damage which mental health and personal life stories share. Backwards, it's war. And if we do not help the mental health crisis by changing the way we're looking at it, then nothing will change and compounded together will be disastrous. Raw shares the real life human stories like the one that I've just had with Aimee. It's going to help to impart some neuropsychological education, look at how our brain, body and mind connect at intersections and the indisputable connection between mental and physical health. It takes an honest look at what we're taught against the reality of what actually is happening in the underground, our subconscious world, learning en route a variety of tools that enable trapped emotions to be released instead of staying stuck in patterns that don't support our core beliefs and values.